I sat in my bedroom in front of the mirror combing my hair, awaiting the arrival of my date. My parents had left for their annual cruise, so it was just me hearing the trees and leaves blow from the window in this big poorly lit home. My friend Kara became aware of David due to him hanging out with her boyfriend at the time. She tried for weeks to set us up. Eventually, I caved in. I wasn't in the right headspace to be dating anyone, but I agreed nonetheless. I just wanted to get it over with and maybe get back in the game. I heard a car pull up outside my house. I peered out of the window. He was here. I reluctantly descended downstairs and exited the house. As I edged nearer, David's bright smile widened. He was even more handsome in person. I had only seen a couple of pics on Facebook beforehand. I got inside the car. "Hi. Nice to finally meet you," he said in his thick Boston accent. I awkwardly initiated a handshake. He chuckled. He drove me to some fancy restaurant a few miles away. Far too posh for my liking, but I appreciated the effort made. I was pleasantly surprised by David. Most of the guys Kara knew were completely generic and uneventful. He seemed different. Warm, funny, mature. I'll admit, he was a delight. For the majority of the evening, he was constantly asking me about my life. Not once did I get a chance to ask about his. It was quite nice to be with a man that actually seemed to care. His questions were riddled with genuine interest. Refreshing isn't the word. "Well, thank you for a really cool night," he said as he kissed my hand. There was an awkward silence for a moment. Full transparency, I wanted him to lean in and kiss me, but he never attempted. He just stared at me with a big smile on his face. Unusual, yes, but I didn't think much of it at the time. "Night, David," I said, getting out of the car. As I walked up the front lawn, I turned briefly. His stare continued. I closed the front door and paused for a moment. I giggled to myself. I wanted to see him again. In fact, I wanted to run back out and ask him to come inside, but that would have reeked of desperation, and I didn't want to seem like a thirsty bitch. I went upstairs and jumped straight into the shower. David was still relevant in my mind. I'll admit, I kind of wished he was in the shower with me as my fingers wandered a little bit. I couldn't get his gorgeous smile out of my head. I was infatuated. After 20 minutes of letting the water crawl down my skin, I left the shower and dried off. I went downstairs and headed toward the kitchen. I made myself a cup of hot chocolate. As I walked through the living room, I innocently glanced out of the front window. I came to a stop. David's car was still parked outside the house. I was perplexed. David remained seated. His eyes were fixated. His charming smile had vanished. All that was left was a blank expression. I spilled some hot chocolate on the floor as I went to turn. "Damn," I said as the hot liquid touched the skin on my bare foot. I looked out the window again. The driver's door was already wide open. David was no longer in the car. I am like, what the hell? He called my name from beyond the front door. "What's wrong, David?" I said. "Can I come in?" he replied. I was incredibly tempted to say yes, but I went in the opposite direction. Playing hard to get. "Sorry, but I'm gonna go to bed now." Silence lingered. Then harsher interpretations of the previous knocks began. The frustration driving them was evident. "I really want to come in," he said. The feeling of sexy excitement fastly morphed into uneasiness. "David, I'm saying no. Now good night," I said with authority. The knocks resumed. "It sounded as if it was a pistol barrel hitting the door," I said. "Open the door, bitch," he shouted. I said, "Go away." In that moment, David started kicking the door. With each thud, my heart raced faster, being that he was a big guy also. I couldn't believe what was happening. I wanted nothing more than for Mom and Dad to come rushing downstairs and say that everything was gonna be alright. David was hell-bent on getting inside. Why, I had no idea, and I was scared to find out. My parents will be back soon, David. Get out of here. The knocking stopped abruptly. I saw David fast-pace back to his car as he tucked something in his waistband. He took off down the street and circled my block a few times. I locked all the doors and windows that night. I barely slept. The next day I wasted no time in letting Kara know that David was a creep. She was legitimately stunned. I never heard from him again, thank God. I'm just grateful that things didn't escalate further. I went from being heavily attracted to terrified of him all within a few short hours. I have to wonder now if was David even his real name, but one thing that was very strange and scary to hear is a guy named David had been assaulting women in my area, and one didn't survive the incident. The story as told is she was sexually violated and mutilated beyond recognition.